I've read more than 350 fantasy books, but today I wanted to bring you the top 10 completed fantasy series, my favorites, so that you can come binge all of them and then come back and tell me what are your thoughts about them. And let me tell you, it was really hard to create this list, and I think you will be very surprised about the one that I got in the 5th position. But before we start, let's get into the honorable mentions. In here I have 4 series that I haven't yet concluded, but I feel those are going to be favorites, and these series are concluded. The first one is the Powder Mages trilogy by Brian McClelland. Now, first book I adored. It has a great blend between humor, adventure, it has a great political theme, plus religious, plus war, it has a detectivist point, the stakes are really high from the beginning, and there's a hard magic system that divides magic and the magic users in 3 different levels. I really enjoyed it and I cannot wait to conclude this trilogy. The second one is the Lightbringer series. Still, I've just read the first book, The Black Prism, but there's so many promising stuff within this book and I really believe it's going to be one of my favorites. There are twists and turns, the characters are great, which I absolutely adore. The stakes are high, the magic system, it's around colors and everyone has a special power which makes it so very incredibly entertaining. There's also this humorous touch which I'm really a sucker for. Then we go to the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. I've just read The Bear and the Nightingale, but this is a story that I thought I was gonna hate, but I ended up really loving. It is a deeply religious, which at the beginning I was like, maybe not. But the main character, it's so unique. She's very charismatic in the way that her energy, how independent and mind-strong she is. The setting, it's also very unique and it's written in a way that it's very beautiful, but it's savage at some points. And the last one here, it's the Devabat trilogy. Just read City of Brass, but I am really excited. I not only loved this Arabian setting, the djinn, the magic that you can see, but also there were so many characters that were really charismatic, really entertaining. I'm not sure what I want to happen or not. There are lots of politics, a lot of adventure, and it seems fantasy at its finest. I cannot wait. But let's get into the proper list, starting with the top 10, which is Red Rising. The only reason why Red Rising is here is because I believe I'm technically cheating. I'm referring to the first trilogy, and I know there are more books in this saga, and that I believe that the last one has not yet been released, but in a way, I just feel that even if I don't progress with the story, I'm almost happy with what I know. Pierce Brown has this ability of creating really vivid scenes. I have lots of trouble imagining stuff, and with him I was really there in the table, in the war scenes and everything. It's so emotional, but at the same time there are characters that really have a mind for the strategy, and you then see how everything blends together. The stakes are high. We are talking about a society that is divided per colors, and we'll follow our main character who lives in the lowest rank of the society. He's a red one, and he will try to infiltrate the golden ones and break everything from within. And how you get there, what you see, the relationships, it just really got me.
And also, I'm of the opinion that book 1, it's really different to book 2 and 3, right?
100%. Meanwhile, book 1, it's great for context and setting. Book 2 and 3 really blew my mind. The stakes are incredibly high. The setting, it's even different, and it's just perfection. Then we continue with the top 9 and with the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams. How the story blends sci-fi, horror, fantasy elements, different species, stakes that are really high, and just really great characters, plus animal companions. I think this trilogy is a masterpiece, plus it is really underrated. And all of that is what it's making this one of my favorite completed fantasy trilogies of all time. It definitely leans towards the slower side of things, and you will definitely need to have a little bit of patience, especially with the first book, because the premise is that there's a war that it's about to be unfolded, but the species that always defeated the creatures that are starting the war are almost all dead, and as a result we have a society that, one, don't really know what is this war. They don't know what is gonna happen. Second, they don't know how to defeat them, and everything is such a mess, and you see how the events are progressing. We see different perspectives here, great adventure, characters that are unforgettable, very moody animal companions, and I just really enjoyed that part. In the top 8, and I bet that you're somewhat surprised that this is here, we have The Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. This is not a fantasy series that is perfect. It is just perfect to me, and I really loved it to pieces because it has so many elements that resonate with me. I really love quest. It's one of my favorite tropes. I love how our characters will embark themselves on a journey and how this journey will become really dangerous. But I also really like Asian inspired stories, and this one has a feudal Japanese setting that it's just beautiful. The descriptions of some of the scenes were just mind-blowingly beautiful, and I was in love. I wanted to get into the story, which seems lighthearted at times, but the things that happen are actually pretty serious, and the series overall managed to pack a punch to the heart. It really reads very quickly as a video game. And we move to the top 7 with another young adult story, in this case a duology, and that is Strange the Dreamer. This brought me back to reading, and it's just a beautiful story. There are moments that are really sweet, but there are others that are savage and that are fairly dark, which will get you slightly confused about how do you supposed to be feeling with this book.
Right, I'm going more for the dark, but this is honestly also one of my favorite series, mainly because of the power that one of the main characters will have.
Shush, don't unveil anything. But yes, this is a story that leans a little bit towards the purple prose, so the descriptions are slightly more in depth. We will see this magical mystery city called Weep that doesn't really exist, but there are some creatures that have powers. Each of these characters has a different type of magic. In the top 6, we will have...
Ooh, do I know which series is this? Are we talking about the Bone Shard?
Yes, in the 6th position we will have The Drowning Empire, first book, The Bone Shard Daughter. I really liked this trilogy, which was concluded not so long ago. It has stakes that are super high, a world that is completely new to me, a magic system that seems very unique, and it's honestly one of my favorites of all time. I think it is very creative, very unique how one of these characters is able to inscribe instructions in bones, then put these bones into creatures, and then these creatures can be commanded, can be alive. There's also animal companions within this story, which I actually really appreciate as well. There's also very great characters. Book 1 was still my favorite, and it's a perfect blend between fantasy, sci-fi, horror. There's a mystery to unravel, there's high stakes, a potential enemy that it's emerging. It's a great fantasy series, and this is the view from this author, so I just cannot wait to see what else we're gonna be seeing here. In the top 5, and this is actually the first time that I'm adding this duology into my top favorite list, Elements of Cadence by Rebecca Ross. I am obsessed with this author. I've been binge reading everything that she has, and I'm almost up to date now. Her stories are beautiful, creative, are unique in so many ways, but the way in which are written, the stakes are so high. A good blend between a character and a plot-driven story. In this case, we will lean a little bit more towards the character-driven side. We will have here adult characters, and I thought that was very refreshing. We will see 4 different perspectives. If you liked The Song of Achilles or Circe, I really believe that you will enjoy these because the writing style and how it will make you feel, it's very similar. And now we've officially reached the point where everything, it's like favorites of all time forever. We start with the top 4, and that is The Poppy War. This is a Savage trilogy that starts in a way that hints you that it will be that way, but you will be thrown into the chaos, into the war, almost not knowing what will happen at some point. So it's an incredible ride. It starts being way more dark academia vibe kind of story, and then it really quickly progresses into a very war and strategic driven story. This trilogy has the worst main character that I've read in a while. It was really hard for me to connect with her. She had her own motivations, she really is full of herself, and seeing how the story unfolds will make you scream. The stakes are so high. We will see how our main girl has a little bit of an affinity with the gods, which might make her a shaman, and the decisions that she will make, how the war will be depicted, it is terrible and it will really break your heart. It is very dark, it is very serious, and it is fantastic beginning to end. In the top 3, Mistborn Era 1 by Brandon Sanderson. I wasn't able to put this trilogy farther down the line, even if it's a story that I read like really almost 10 years, 15 years ago. I don't even remember. But at the end of the day, I couldn't bear the feeling of seeing this story like not even in the top 3, because the magic and how this story it's finalized, the stakes, how everything it's created, it's just so mind-blowing, and it had such a great mark in me and my taste for fantasy and my love for Sanderson that it needs to be here. The premise is really interesting. We will have a heist at its core that emerges and changes into something more. We will have a band of misfits. We have charismatic leaders with characters that will be drawn into the story, but that they are not as likable, but nonetheless will play a key role. We will have my favorite magic system being played out here, which is the Allomancy, which consists of some people being able to ingest metals, and those metals granting those people the power of doing special stuff. You will need to understand what each of these metals do, and it is played out in such an incredible way. You will see how these different people clash in these different fight scenes, and you will be like, but wait a second, if this happened, then book 1 ends in such a way. In the conclusion of the trilogy, it's just so well done. And you won't forget anything that happens here. However, in the top 2, we have a really underrated story that if you haven't read already, please do, and that is the Aurelian Cycle by Rosaria Munda, with the first book, Fireborn. Okay, you see this book, how amazing the book cover is? Okay, now you take it, please read it. It has dragons. It's set in this moment when a revolution has happened and we were seeing the aftermath of that. There's a very complicated society that is trying to do their best, but they are obviously not really succeeding. And we will have 2 main characters that has a little bit of tension. They are friends since they've been children, but their backgrounds are completely different and they should be enemies. One of the best character arcs that I've seen. Everything is managed in such a brilliant way. It is highly political. The war scenes are also really great, and it's just a story that will pack a punch to your heart. It's supposed to be a young adult story, but to me it really leans adult. It is fantastic, and I sobbed so much with the 3rd book, so I cannot wait for this pain to be shared and for us to go to therapy together. And in the top 1 we have the Greenbone Saga by Fonda. It is a terrifying realization to see that this trilogy is my favorite of all time, because it is started being a story that I did not think this was going to be for me, and it just makes me think, what else is there that I don't know about? It is an urban fantasy story that will talk about these 2 bands that are fighting for the control of the Jade, and if you wield it, you can have powers. It is highly political. The characters are unforgettable. It is no doubt the best character work that I've read in my life. We will follow the story of these 3 siblings that are within one of these bands, and each of them are really different, but how Fonda created these stakes, how these different bands work, and these different characters, it's just outstanding work. It is phenomenal. You won't really be able to call what happens, and eventually with the last book this will become more of an epic story because it will have this transgenerational element, as we will see really the consequences of this war that we will start seeing in book 1. Also the narration, it's really good if you want to give the audiobook a try. Right, let me know down below what are your favorite completed fantasy series, so that not only me but also the rest of this cozy family can get all the recommendations, and I cannot wait to see them.